Hello, everyone. Been a little while since I've sent you a video, so um, here we are. It's currently, at least as I record this, it is Monday morning of finals week, and I feel like every time, I feel like I was just sitting here doing the intro video, saying, "Welcome. Here's the syllabus. This is going to go quickly," and you know. Um, but we have almost made it. We're very, very close to making it. So I thought I'd better at least get something out to kind of take stock, try to speak to any of the parts that are still kind of happening with the course, think about potential questions, and address a few things kind of as we go into these last few days of the term. And so I'll try to keep this brief. I know I get very blah blah, and I got coffee, so that doesn't bode well. But try to keep it reasonably straightforward. So for our course for brain and behavior, um, if thankfully the structure by way at least of kind of where the grades come from, what are the moving parts that go into the evaluation, all that piece, those are hopefully at least relatively straightforward, comparatively speaking, to my other courses. Um, so we have what? We have the mind tap piece, which I know I've said a gazillion times in the times that I have been in touch with you all. So just a quick reminder to touch base on the mind tap thing. So you know that the MindTap platform, right? It was a separate kind of entity relative to the Canvas platform. So it existed independently and came through the textbook, this sort of thing. It contains its own gradebook, right? And I think I alluded way back when we were getting started that these grade books sort of exist independent of one another. There's the one within Canvas where you've been seeing all the points for your discussions, for the midterm, these kinds of things. And then all the work you've been doing in MindTap, those points have been just showing up in the grade book within MindTap itself. Not optimal, I know. But as promised, I think again, like 10 weeks ago when I had sent you a video, what is going to be happening in these coming days. I mean, so we are in finals week, and as we kind of approach towards the end of the week, of course, I'm going to have to be getting grades for all courses kind of put together. So what will be happening, again, not till towards the end of the week, and I'll qualify all this towards the end of this message too. I will be exporting all of the points out of MindTap into my own spreadsheet. I'll take all those points, work with them in the way I'll describe here in a moment, and then I'll input those points into the Canvas gradebook. If you've seen in that gradebook, there's a column that pertains to the MindTap comprehension checks, and there is a column that pertains to the MindTap chapter quizzes. So I'll be taking all the points from those, transferring those here soon. So while we're still here, let's quick take stock of that. It's been a little while since I've gone into the MindTap gradebook from my end. Last times I did, there was a little troubleshooting for a handful of you, but on the whole, everything looked like it was going splendidly as far as those go. So this is just a reminder, a suggestion, a nudge to say at some point this week, provided you have the opportunity, do go in and take a peek. Make sure the stuff that you were working on, the stuff you submitted, all that is in there. You can kind of retake them. So sometimes the submission piece, if you're trying to get the better score, you just want to make sure that did actually get submitted, because unless it was officially submitted, right, it's not going to show up with the points in the grade book. And then, as you can imagine on my end, insofar as what I can see when I export those points out, if you took it a few times but never fully submitted it, all I can see is that there's no points there. So that's why I encourage all of you to go in, check it out, make sure what is supposed to be there is indeed there. Um, Also, just again, relating back to some things that I described early on in the course, we, for better or worse, have been trying to make these things extraordinarily flexible and malleable for people with things going on. The, in short, I guess what I'm saying is, even if there are sections within the Mind Tap, and I'll come to this too with the discussions, you got really, really busy back in July, and there was the family reunion and the this and the that, and like you just weren't able to do some of the stuff from this chapter, or a few things from this chapter, because that's how life goes. Well, you still can. So if, for instance, you go in, you see, back in chapter 8, I didn't do the chapter quiz for that one, or I kind of missed a handful of the comprehension checks, whatever. You can still do them. You can absolutely still do them. So if you go in, today is Monday, go in, like I say, I probably won't extract those until closer to the end of the week. So even during finals week, Wednesday, you can go in and go back and be like, oh, right, chapter 4 from way the hell back in the summer, I didn't do X, Y, or Z. Do it. Just do it. Any points, of course, that you get, once I take those out and plug them in, the points are there or they're not. So if they show up this week, or if they showed up 6 weeks ago, it's all good. So I put that out there for what it's worth, just so that you know, because some of us still kind of have that mentality. Certainly it's the culture that I was more accustomed to, like you bypass something and it is gone. But we're not doing that here. So take that for what it's worth. I know I touched on this as I was just saying these things. A quick reminder, I kind of beat it to death earlier on, but remember, the only graded, the only points, the only things that will be coming out of there are the comprehension checks and the quizzes. And the 14 chapters, 10-point quizzes, 140 points will come from the chapter quizzes. So those will just straight up be 140 possible. Here's all the points that you got within there doing that. That's to be contrasted with the comprehension checks, where there's 130 points that come from the comprehension checks. But if you notice, if you did all of the comprehension checks through all of the chapters, through all of the course, your total is going to well exceed the points that come from that in the grade book. Which is to say, as I described early on, you could have missed some points here and there, or you could have skipped a handful of the comprehension checks. And really, there's quite a few points there. So even if, there's a huge buffer that even if you missed points, missed some assignments, you're probably still going to cross that threshold of the 130 possible points that come from it. But again, take that for what it's worth. I'll be transferring those grades here in a few days. Okay, enough about Mind Tap. Maybe we never have to say that word again. Well, I will, but for you. Discussion forums. So hopefully you've been seeing that I've gotten in there. I've been trying to kind of respond to some of the things that you've been writing, speak to them, attend to them a little bit. It's been very hard this summer. I hate that. I could spend forever. It's the one place where I actually get to get in and hear about what you're thinking about and how you're interpreting things and how it relates and stuff like that. It's kind of my one place to really get to interact with you in this weird digital environment. But it's been very limited this summer, just given, life and such. So hopefully at the very least you have seen the feedback that I've given, or pieces that I put in there, comments, etc., stuff like that. And then of course the points. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in our course, at this point, I think I got to pick up at about week 7, 8, 9, something like that. And I was purposefully waiting on that because I've seen, and it's not uncommon during the summer, but many of you have a lot of blanks in there for discussions, a lot of missing discussions, missing points, that kind of a thing. So even though the discussions are, of course, a much more, what do I want to say? They're much more yoked to the passage of time, right? The whole, as we made our way through chapters 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, ostensibly as a group, this would be the point at which, we'd be having those discussions as people are reading about it, as people are studying it, thinking about it, all of that. All of that, sure, in a perfect world, and that's great. Again, this is finals week. We got, you can count the hours basically that we have left. So if you're going through, you're looking at those points, there's a lot of points that come from those discussion forums. Do it. Even if they're old, even if they're past, even if they're whatever, you can still go in and make some kind of a contribution if you decide to scoop up some points there. Because again, for as much as, sure, the time has passed for chapter 3, chapter 4, some of these things that were many, many weeks ago, that I don't want that to mean like, suck it up, you just get a 0. That doesn't have to be the case. So again, for what it's worth, I put it out there. If you want to revisit some of these, you want to make contributions, they don't have to be big fat zeros sitting there in the grade book, provided that you're able to do some of that. Again, kind of in the coming days, as I'm going to talk about towards the end of this, what it's going to look like going into the end of finals week, final grades, all of that good stuff. But having talked about MindTap, having talked about the discussion forums now, really that only leaves us to the last parts, which were the exams, one of which we've done and one of which some of you have actually already begun, and the extra credit piece. So with the midterm, y'all did actually quite well with that midterm, and the final is going to look almost precisely the same, of course, right? It's only difference being it's going to cover the content from where the midterm left off and what we've done over the past several weeks. Otherwise, structurally, content-wise, by which I mean, types of multiple choice questions applied versus definitional, these kinds of things, should be no surprises in there. And hopefully all of you have been able to access the study guides and the things like that kind of in preparation for that. I was going to mention again the extra credit. I know I can't remember now if it was in videos or audios or just emails where I'd been in touch about it before. Remember that extra credit option is still there. It's a little bit of a pain to find because I believe it is, if you go into the modules, it's like all the way down at the bottom. You have to actually go past the final study guide, the final exam, those things to access it. But it is a way to pick up, depending on, as you kind of read through it, depending on what your score was in that, upwards of 40 points for doing that. And it's the way that it's presented. It's not, it's like an exam, but not in the sense it's not proctored. It's not timed. You can have your book, you can have your notes, you can have your internet, you can have your best friend, the neuroscientist, whatever it is. And then those questions essentially go back over the kinds of things that we had covered on the midterm and says, okay, great, we did the thing. Now you want to revisit this stuff with the sort of hindsight and that kind of a thing. And it's just a good way to pick up some points. And it is kind of a pain. I know if you've read through the description of how the points work, it's something I kind of inherited. It's a whole other story altogether. Upwards of 40 points, depending on how your score sat after that midterm, out of the possible 250 that we had overall. What else was I going to say about that? I know there was something else I was going to say about that, but I guess we're going to see if I can think about it. It may or may not have any relevance to you. I don't know how many people hang out and really assiduously keep track of the grade book. Just an FYI, it's just weird stuff to do with how Canvas works and often doesn't work. So what's going to happen is at the very end, probably this weekend, as I'm getting final grades figured out, you're going to see that your extra credit is plugged into that column for extra credit. And then at some point, all those points are going to disappear from that column. And then all of the points achievable will get added on to your midterm score. And so your midterm grade, provided you've done extra credit, will jump up at the same time that those points disappear from the column. If you want to, I don't know what kind of a masochist would want to know these things. I'm happy to explain why that is, but of course, you get all the points. It doesn't change anything, right? If you got 40 extra credit points, whether they show up in that column or they just get tacked on to your midterm, or if I added them to a discussion, wherever they go, there's the 40 points. And so it's just a matter of how the system kind of works, unfortunately, that I just need to add those onto something, and the midterm just makes the most sense. So I just say that for what it's worth, because some folks will go in and they won't see the points were added onto the midterm. They'll just see that suddenly they have no extra credit points, and that's when the panicked messages start. People looking through my windows, knocking on my doors, sending threatening letters. You know how it is. Okay, so I've alluded to the final. I'm trying to think if there's really too much more to add about that. Again, for all intents and purposes, this thing is going to be equivalent to what the midterm was. Same proctoring, same length, same number of questions, same kinds of questions, all of it. Of course, the content's just going to reflect what we've done in these past 5 weeks now. And the way that finals week gets set up, I don't know how many of you, maybe some of you have been in a course with me before, for better or worse, and I put this out there for what it's worth. A lot of instructors are really on top of their stuff. They get their things together. Their final exams are due, before the end of the actual 5-day work week itself, and final grades will be put together and thrown together and in by the weekend. And that's great, and I can do that. But particularly like with the summer term, in this course and in other courses, like, it's summer. So there is a lot missing, and I know that I'm going to have a pretty good number of folks out there doing the panicked thing this week and getting in as much as they conceivably can with their work and all of that. This is all to say that my approach generally then is I try to leave things open kind of as long as I can, just with the idea that I want to accommodate people the best that I possibly can. Give everybody the most opportunity, the greatest window to get things in. So I can't remember honestly right now, because I have so many different syllabi in that. I feel like our course has said that the final has to be completed by Friday of this week. And if that works for you, yeah, by all means, get it done, be done with the course. But for those of you who are really, you got a lot happening and it's going to be hard and you got all these things you're trying to get in and whatever, I currently have the final exam set up to be available all the way until Sunday night. And so even though finals week wraps up here at the end of the week on Friday, we, with my other courses, I've got projects and research papers and like massive things that I've got to grade over the weekend and that. So we don't technically put our grades in generally until the Monday after. So it would be the 5th, but the 5th is also Labor Day with the holiday, and so I'll have to see how that works out in terms of the exact hours. But suffice it to say, I will be grading through the weekend. I'll be cranking stuff out right up through like Monday morning and some of that. So if you're freaking out and you're like, oh my God, I need to, try to get this stuff in before a certain time, that's where I guess I'll just tell you openly and honestly, if you can sneak these things in, if you can hammer them out and you can get them to me, again, it's Monday morning right now, whatever the hell today is, the 29th. If you can get these things to me by a week from now, that Monday, even though the term is over, I will do everything in my power, provided that they are showing up, so that they all get included, so that I can do the maximal, that I can for each and every one of you. So there we go. I hope that makes sense. I hope it's helpful and all of that. But I think we more or less covered things. The mind tap, grades will be getting transferred towards the end of the week. All of that you can still do. So ball's in your court as far as your decisions about anything that might be missing or anything like that. Discussions, kind of the same story, right? Even though they are a little harder to like go back retrospectively and pretend we're engaging in the conversation that took place, you can still go make posts. You can still pick up points in that regard. If you've done the extra credit, awesome. If you haven't, I highly suggest it. And then the final, as we just discussed, will be available all week through Sunday night. Same format, should be no pulling of punches, no surprises, any of that. And that's more or less going to do it for us, I think. So that's a good place to leave it for now. I'm sure there might be a handful of you who maybe have questions or want to cover this or blah, blah, whatever it might be. Great. I am around. Shoot me a message. I am always on. I'm going to be on email. If you want to do a Zoom or a phone call or this or that, like, just let me know. It is crunch time, right? So we are in this crazy frenetic sprint to the finish line, and you can go it on your own. But if there's any way in which I can help or answer questions or that's why I'm here. So please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you all have had a great summer. I wish I could have spent more time in here interacting with you all, but we, I guess, sort of understand the nature of these courses and all that, particularly again in the summer. But I've absolutely loved reading all the stuff that you guys have written, again, the discussion forums. It's like the one place I really get to have anything resembling an interesting interaction with you all. So thank you for those. I genuinely enjoy them. Great job with the course, and if I am in touch with you, between now and then, awesome. If not, I wish you the absolute best. I would love the opportunity to hopefully get to work with any of you again going down the road. But if not, all the best going forward, and I hope you have a wonderful, however long the rest of the summers are going to be, because it's going to be crazy too. Okay, now I'm just getting weird. I'm going to go chug some coffee. Good luck this week with this course and any and all others. Please be in touch if you wish to be. Otherwise, take good care of yourselves, and don't let the bastards get you down. Yeah, we'll end with that. All right. Cheers.